Hello and welcome to Lynn Grieveson Designs. It's Lynn here, and I am going to show you how I have been using some of my templates to scrap some travel layouts and travel photo books, in fact. And the layouts that I'm going to show you have been created using the Scrap the Lot templates, and there's two sets of those: Scrap the Lot number one and Scrap the Lot number two, or uh, if you want, you can get both sets in a bundle and obviously save quite a bit on that joint price. So the layouts I'm going to show you actually use both sets, and the first ones I'm going to show you are from this album here, this photo book which I made of a trip we took a couple of years ago. And I'll just these are straight off my camera, so I'll just show you some of the actual double page layouts from the book, as well as some of the actual layouts. So it's a bit small, isn't it? There you go. So this is what it looks like printed in the book. I use Shutterfly 10 by 10 photo books. I use glossy pages. I just quite like the way they feel. They're very thick, they're glossy. They stand up to people looking through the books quite a lot. So that particular photo book was of some time that we spent in London and well, in the UK, and I'll just go through some of the pages and talk about what I've done. So this is one example. This is actually a trip we took to the Natural History Museum. I used a little bit of a different brush down here, but you get the idea. What I did is, when I was in the museum, I took photos of close-up photos of some of the exhibits, and I used one of the close-up photos here as kind of the background of the page. And I used just going to find it. Here it is. I used my Walden elements, the bird and the tag, on that page. So that's one little trick. And I'll show you another page where I also use the same elements. I'm hunting around here for the see if I can find it. No, that's not it. I might just actually open it. Maybe I shut it. Okay, so I'll just go and open it. Here we go. So this page here, which was in Richmond, which is one of my favourite places when we're in London to go to, and it was the middle of winter. I obviously did not let the kids go on the frozen pond, and this is not our dog, but someone else's dog, who thankfully didn't fall through the ice, but we had a lot of fun watching him. So as you can see here, what I've done is I've just clipped the big photo, to this large background photo space, and I actually put two color overlays on that. I put a brownish, I put a bluish one on, and then I duplicated the layer and I changed the photo overlay to a browny one, and erased some of the top bits. So it's kind of, there's a bit of brown up here, a bit of blue up here, and I used some of the elements from Walden, and also the papers that are from the Walden kit on these areas here. So I'll shut that down. And I'll just go through some of my other London pages. This is St James Park. It was actually only about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, 2:30, something like that. But because it was the middle of winter, the sun was already setting, but it made for the most amazing light, which was wonderful. And I used that photo just again on the big background layer. And then I used my Victory kit. For the paper here, I actually upped the saturation a bit, and for the elements. And then another one from London, which was, again, I'm going to struggle to find it. Didn't think this one through. I can see. I'll just open it. Here we go. I think this is it. So this is the West End, and I use the Victory kit here again. I use the the flag banner and some of the couple of the little glass buttons as well. And what I did here is I actually used two photos for this background part. I had this photo here of the pub, the Globe pub. Originally I had that large, but I had another photo of all the crowds that were wandering around. And that's one of the things that I remember particularly from walking around the West End was the crowds. And so I just had a bit of a play around and I dragged that photo on top of the photo of the pub and I put it onto linear light blend mode. I actually erased a little bit of it so that the pub name was clear, and and then I just left it like that to get that sort of feel of just the bustle and the hustle and the and I just really like the effect. So it's really fun to do that, to play around with blend modes on that the large photos that you use. You can get some quite fun effects, and I'll show you some more actually later of the next album that I did. So I'll just find some more of these ones from London. Yes, here's one I did of the Tate Britain Art Gallery. And one of the things I like doing is actually using found images to use as titles. So in this case, I took the lettering which was on the outside of the building and used it along that top strip to create the title of the page. And it's a really fun thing to do if you're traveling, especially if you're walking around looking for photos. If you spot things like that, it's quite fun to sort of it's a bit of a treasure hunt for me. And I actually wanted to use it too because I talk about in the journaling here about how one of the things that fascinated us about the actual building, as well as obviously what was inside it, was how the outside of the building was covered in all these holes. And while we waited for the art gallery to open, because we actually had got there quite early, we Googled what the holes were, and it turned out it was from a bomb that had exploded in the street just beside it during World War II, and that was from the shrapnel. And again, this was me just playing around. I had a photo of the outside of the building, which you can see, and then originally I had as my background this piece of artwork here, which was a lot of text, which my daughter particularly liked. But then when I experimented with some blend modes, I found I kind of clipped it to the shape of the museum. I liked that. But then I also found this other photo I'd taken, which I really liked, of this installation and a screen. And when I dragged that on, again, and played around with the blend modes, and don't ask me which one I use because I just sort of flick through them as I go. You can find them here. You just go layer style, and when you click down on that, drop down beside the normal, if you've got more than one layer, it will give you lots of options such as screen, multiply, overlay, pin light, linear light, and it's really fun just to go through them and see what different effects you can have. So I really suggest that if you want to have some fun with your pages, it's a really good thing to do is to try that with some background photos. Just drag one on top and just play around with those blend modes. A really good thing to do before you do that is to up the brightness and contrast by going to Image Adjustments, Brightness, Contrast, and that tends to get some really good effects as well. So what else have I got here? Oh yes, this is the Hackney Canal, which was a bit of a surprise. We just jumped on a bus and we ended up in Hackney, and I looked out the window of the bus and I could see we were right by the canal. So I said, quick, let's get off, and we did, and then we walked along the canal, which was great. And what I've done here is, again, this is like another treasure hunt photo where I found this dodo that someone had put on the wall of the beside the canal, which is fun. And then these berries were growing beside the canal, so I actually put that behind this other photo of my daughter. And then I've got some just some very soft yellow paint there, which I've then used an overlay mode and then sort of erased it, just so it kind of makes a bit more of a separation between those two photos and just adds a bit of interest. What else else have we got here from London? Trafalgar Square, which had this amazing statue on one of the plinths. And yes, walking along the Albert Embankment on our way back to our friend's house in the evening, a snogging couple. Don't know if you say snogging in other parts of the world, but in Britain we say snogging. And I put a transfer from, I think that might be from the Walden kit as well, which is like a paint and element in one. You can just drag it on for a bit of added interest. Here's the when I showed you the pages of the book before, this is one of the pages that was in that. And this is when we caught a river bus up the river. And it was very early in the morning, and the light was amazing. And we had the bus all to ourselves. It was incredible. So this is just, again, I've done a colour overlay on this background photo and then erased part of it just to leave some of the colour behind. And I've added on a brush there. What have we? This is Richmond again. This was when I did let them walk on frozen ice, but it was just a puddle, not a pond, so they weren't going to fall through and go anywhere. This was the Roald Dahl Museum in Great Missenden, and again, this is another example where I've used the found stuff. This was actually just the map, which was at the front of the museum, and it made a really fun background for the page. And I think I might have a double page spread. Yes, I have. I've got the double page spread of that. So that's what it looks like in the photo book. That's a drawing my daughter did, and just some photos of the museum. Again, that was straight out the camera. So, and where are we? Oh yes, that's right, Scotland. Oh no, here we go. This is my daughter outside the museum. Outside the museum, she wasn't born in a museum. This is outside the hospital where she was born, which she found quite amazing. Just the idea that that's where she was born was, she just loved that. And this is outside the house where we lived when she was a baby, and this is where I used to walk with her in the pushchair when she was a baby. And then we also went up north to visit family, because that's where I'm from. And we went straight from London up to Edinburgh, and then we drove back down to visit my family. And I hadn't actually been to Edinburgh before, and I found it quite gloomy and a little bit oppressive actually. It was the middle of winter, but still. But it was very touristy, which obviously. And we did laugh. These people were sort of trying to hit every spot with their tartan and their Princess Diana as well. And for this one, I actually deleted that top strip, which goes across most of the pages, because I wanted this photo to just sort of extend right up. Whoops. There you go. And I think I upped the brightness and contrast in that. And again, I've dragged on just a bit of paint from the Fine Piece kit onto that edge there. And this is elsewhere in Edinburgh. This is golf course that we pulled over and along the coast to take some photos, and again the light was just glorious. And again, this is some elements here from the Walden kit, and this is the spread in the 10 by 10 photo book that I made. We just stopped at a random castle. I like the way you can say that, a random castle, and had a bit of an explore. And the other thing that we did on that trip, which was amazing, is we went to the Harry Potter Studios in Watford, which is just outside London. And these are some of the pages of the photos that I took there. And I had some fun with those. And what I did was Again, I took some sort of just detail pages of things that were around. Sale of unicorn blood is forbidden, do not ask. And I actually merged them together. I sort of pulled that photo on. I used a very soft brush just to erase part of it, and I think I used the dodge tool, which you find up here. Dodge tool, burn tool, sponge tool. Dodge tool makes things lighter. I show very well there. So I tend to use that just on the edges where I'm blending one photo into another. And I use some Halloween elements from Halloween kits on that. And I actually, whoops, I'll show you. Up the top, up here, I used a detail photo on that top strip and again on the bottom strip as well. So that's just part of some of the photos. In fact, that's that same photo there. And it's the other side of that, and you see I used the Halloween things in the photo, and that's a Halloween paint transfer that I've dragged on. And the other thing that we really loved at Harry Potter Studios was, well, obviously the models. This is us at Hogwarts, which is a big scale model of Hogwarts. It's amazing. But the other thing was the models that they had made of when they were doing the designs, and you can see them all there, these paper models, and they were absolutely amazing. And this is the page in the book, so you can see what it looks like when it's printed as a photo book. So this is what we do. Instead of having photo albums, we have these photo books of every trip. And again, I've used some of the photo, I've desaturated it, taking the colour out. So you can do that image adjustment. You can change the saturation. There's shortcuts to it you can do to desaturate. And I've used that on the top strip there, and again on there, because we just love the detail of those. Again, I've used a different brush down here just for the edge effects from what's in the template. So that's the some of the pages from that trip we took, but we've recently been in France, and I'm very lucky. We actually swap our home with people so that we can do this travelling. So we live in their place, they live in our place. Does mean you have to spend a lot of time getting the place ready, and but that's quite a good excuse to have a bit of a spring clean. But it's great because you feel like you're actually living in these places. So we were staying down in the south of France near the border with Spain. Actually, I think I've got another couple of layouts. Yes, I have of Harry Potter. There you go. That's some of those. So these are some of the layouts from France. And I'll just give you some more ideas about what I've done. So this one here, near where we were staying, was where Alfred Nobel had his explosives factory, his dynamite factory, and it was actually located as far as they could possibly get from the border with Germany. So you could probably walk from the factory over the border into Spain, in actual fact. And on this page here, I very much did a straight layout. I just used one of the photos, and this landscape photos of the area where the factory was, which is beautifully landscaped and with some restored buildings and then other ones which were in ruins. And while we were there, some workmen were actually removing a hornet's nest from a tree, which is quite fascinating to us because we don't really see hornet's nests where we are. So we watched them do that. And so that's just a very straightforward page. I use some papers from my Sprout paper pack along the strips and along here. But the other side of that, which was more about the actual museum, I did, the trick again where I used the photo for the top strip, and I also used another bit of photo here of inside the museum, which is this photo here but enlarged. And for this background for the page, I actually layered two photos over each other. One photo is a picture of a mural which was on a wall of the museum, and then another picture is a photo of some newspaper clippings they had about some of the explosions, one of the explosions which have actually happened at the explosives factory over the century that it was in operation. And I just put that on an overlay mode on top so that you could actually see both. So it's lots of fun doing this. I mean, this is what I love about this is I get to relive trips while I'm doing it. Brings back all the memories, and I get a photo book that my kids love looking at and we love looking at. But also it's just fun. It's just really fun to just play around with, oh, what can I use for this background? What could I put along the top strip here? And so on. So this is the town of Narbonne, which we spent a day in, and a couple of pages from that. So again, just some tricks I've done. Again, I've used the top strip here for photos. This is actually a photo just of the canal, and this is a photo of the outside of the covered market. When I've upped the brightness and the contrast on that just to make it really pop. And this is my daughter inside the market and some details inside the market. And here they are outside the market with some of the goodies which they bought, which they really shouldn't because we were trying to cut down on sugar, but she cannot resist meringues when in France. And for the circle, I actually used a detail from this picture here, which is the outside of the cathedral, which they had wrapped in a ribbon for Christmas. And on this page here, I had some more fun again. I had the photo of this amazing bridge which goes over the canal, which has shops and buildings built all along it. And then I layered another photo on top of that. I changed the colour of that top photo to blue to go with this blues that I've got, the blue sky and this blue paper strip down here. And then I used blend modes just to get this effect here, and it just made it just that little bit more interesting. And it, yeah, like I said, it's just fun. It's fun to play. And then finally, just some of the other photos. I'm still working on this book, so this was a town called Sabia, which is just on the border with Spain, and it had the most amazing breakwater out in the harbour, and my husband insisted on going clambering over it. And so here I've used some interesting background paper as my background. I've pulled on this paint transfer here from the Koei kit. I've put a big soft brush yellow there and then put it on overlay mode. I've used a little phrase strip from one of my kits, and I've used a big photo for the background. And here I've used another photo as a background, but it was just a bit too much. There was just too much going on in all these photos in terms of colour, etc. So I desaturated that photo, but I still wanted to keep these little boats, so I actually duplicated the layer of which and kept it unsaturated, and just erased the black and white one just to reveal just a little bit of it. And this little epoxy here I chose because I wanted something which matched the colour of the backpack, which is actually mine, which he always carries for me because he's good like that. And I put some colour overlays on these photos, which you can see they've got that slightly retro-y look. From memory, a slightly yellowish colour overlay. And again, instead of just leaving the background white, which I quite often do, I used this other photo of my daughter there. So there you go, that's just some of the pages that I have made of our travels using the Scrap the Lot templates from the Lilypad, and you can buy either one pack at a time, or like I said, there's a bundle where you get lots and lots of templates, and you can mix and match them to make lots and lots of double page spreads for photo books. Great. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye.